Good afternoon. I'm honored to be here, and thank you, Mark, thank you. He informed me that I was not the type of girl to stand on a stage and to stay that far away from you. So before we get too far, Mark, thank you so much. I'm honored by every word that I did not write, that you wrote. Thank you for that. Before I get too far, I want to make sure that you understand I don't have COVID. I promise you, I'm not sick in the least bit. So before you go running for the doors, they're locked. You cannot go anywhere. Okay, I promise. I was thinking about where I was going to be today and how important today is. Maybe not to you, but for me, because my heart is here and I'm for you. And I really hope that everything that is shared today, that it lands. And it may be, as he said, uncomfortable for you. But the reason why I need to get right to it is because I don't want you to be distracted by this thing. I just figured that if there's any room that would completely resonate and understand this, it's you guys. This is what we do, right? We put one of these on before we walk into any room. We put on our mask, we smile our best smile. We hide behind happy, even though sometimes we're miserable on the inside. It's what we do. It's what's expected of us. Regardless of the pressure, regardless of what it feels like, this is what we do. No, I am not in club management. I was a pastor for 28 years. We are the same. My job, your job, it's to manage expectations. It's to keep everybody happy, right? We throw ourselves under the bus, often. And regardless of how many tracks are literally through our forehead, we just keep coming. I hate this mask probably more than most of you, and you'll figure out why here in a moment. You see, I understand that professionalism, I understand all of that. I understand the need to put on the smile and to be our best and to walk in. The problem is when the mask becomes us. When the expectation is incredibly high, the pressure is unbearable. And so what you and I do is we run immediately to any type of escape to just let the lid off for a moment. And then depending on where we escape to, then oftentimes what happens is that we fear judgment, and we fear that somebody's going to see we don't have it all together, and that's all the more reason to put on the mask, keep on the mask, and then it gets difficult to take off, even for our family and our friends, our loved ones. It affects our marriages, it affects our friendships, it affects us. Because I don't know about you, but when you're not congruent, when I'm not congruent, it begins to show up in our lives. Is anybody with me? Now listen, I've been a pastor for 28 years. Do not hold that against me. I'm not expecting an amen. But if any point you're hearing me, you can just do a little all right? Something like that. I don't need it. I don't expect it. But I hope that you'll hear that my passion is for you, because after 28 years of doing this thing and living in this thing, I can't stand it. And this is what I know. Perfectionism is not attainable. And that is not actually even from me. Who am I? I'm just a girl that grew up literally down the street. I was born and raised here in Palm Beach Gardens, went to Gardens High, was raised in Garden Woods, 1 mile north of PGA, off of Military. That's where I was born and raised. When I was 17, I left home to go to college. I worked for Disney, took me all over the world, but in Japan. And I've lived a lot of life, and I'm standing here today to tell you that I get what it is to have to sometimes fake it before you make it, and then I understand what it is to put on the mask. I'm nobody, but I think that you would agree with me that Vince Lombardi, he's got some street cred. He's the one that said that perfection is not attainable. In fact, he went on to say not just that perfection is unattainable, but this is what he said. Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. Now, again, I'm just some little girl from Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. What do I know? But here's my problem with that. It's my experience that chasing perfection doesn't catch you excellence as much as it does burnout, frustration, comparison, competition. Anybody with me? Who is she? Where'd she go? There you go. Thank you, sister. My problem with that statement is exactly this, is that we call excellence perfection. They are not the same. We're going to talk about that today. I think, and call me crazy, but I think Dr. Seuss had it straight with life and leadership. Let's take a look at what he said. You have brains in your head and you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. But make no mistake, sorry, it's true, bang-ups and hang-ups can happen to you. Would you agree with that statement? Yeah. I get why Lombardi would say that if we chase perfection, we can get to excellence. But Dr. Seuss understood that there are challenges and there are ups and downs. They're a part of life. In fact, he wrote one of the most famous books of all time on that subject itself. And so I don't know how many of you have had Dr. Seuss read to you in one of these conferences, but today's your day. Today's your day. Sorry, Mark. I promise, I'm trying not to let you down. We're reading Dr. Seuss because here's the thing. Oh, the places you'll go. Let me just see your hand if you own it. Let me see your hand if you've bought it for someone. Do you know it's one of the most gifted books in the world? Most people that own it haven't actually read it. And if you don't know this, it is one of the most depressing books you will ever read. Despite all the frou-frou and the rainbows and the colors, this thing is incredibly close to life. So I'm going to read it to you, if I may. Oh, the places you'll go, and there's good purpose for it, I promise you. It says, again, you have brains in your head and feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know, and you are the guy or gal who'll decide where you go. I feel like I should be doing that. You'll look up and down streets, look them over with care. About some you will say, I don't choose to go there. With your head full of brains and your shoes full of feet, you're too smart to go down any not good street. And you may find any, and you may not find any you'll want to go down. So in that case, you'll just head straight out of town. Sounds about right. How many of you had kids or somebody you love just leave and go off to college or to school? It's opener there with wide open air. Out there, things can happen and frequently do to people as brainy and footsy as you. And when things start to happen, don't worry, don't stew, just go right along. You'll be soon happening too. And so Beth's sitting in the back going, are you serious, Mark? Oh, the places you'll go. And so we're almost there. I'm not reading the entire thing. Here's where it gets interesting. This is what it says. You'll be up on your way. You'll be seeing great sights. You'll join the high flyers. You'll soar to high heights. You'll lag behind because you'll have the speed. You'll pass the whole gang and you'll soon take the lead. Wherever you fly, you'll be the best of the best. Wherever you go, you'll be top of all the rest. Isn't that so exciting? You turn the page and then it says this. Except when you don't. Because sometimes you won't. I'm sorry to say, sadly it's true, bang-ups and hang-ups can happen to you. You'll get all hung up in a prickly perch and your gang will fly on and you'll be left in a lurch. You'll come down from that lurch with an unpleasant bump and chances are you'll be left in a slump. And here's where it gets the best. And when you're in slump, you're not in for much fun. Unslumping yourself is not easily done. Would you agree with that statement? I bought this book for my son when he was going away to college. I live in Jacksonville, Florida now. And before COVID, he was a linebacker. He decided that, that he'd keep his grades up, but who needs to study for SATs and ACTs? So with a 700-ish score on, on his test, he ended up, instead of taking the D1 scholarships that, or schools that wanted him, he had to go the JUCO route. So he ended up in Kansas, playing football there. I'm from Florida. GPS said he was going to be 26:01 from my doorstep to his. 26 hours and 1 minute, and he is my baby boy. I bought him this book, we drove him out, and there he was going to be. And I had already known that Cole struggled with anxiety and depression from a young age. And so I was a little bit concerned for him, but I knew that once he got on the ball field and once he, really bonded with his teammates, he was going to be fine. So I did what any, good parent does. I'm trying to figure out, what can I send with him? What can I leave with him to encourage him? And so I got him this book because, everybody does. And I was sitting there in the hotel on the last night that he was going to be able to be with us. As I sat on the couch and he laid in the bed and he took up the entire thing because he's a big boy. 6'4", 260 at the time. His quads are like tree trunks. And as I sat there as a mother and I was looking over at him, my heart was hurting so badly, but I wanted to leave something as encouragement. And so I wanted to write inside the book. And so I did. But before I knew what to write, I thought, I might as well read this thing. And so I opened it up and I began to read it. And that's what I came up with. And I'm like, man, this book is, number one, pretty depressing. And then number two, it's really close to life. When you get to the end of the book, I don't know if you know this, but when you get to the other side of the book and you're then just rounding it out, here's what it says. And will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 98.75% guaranteed. I'm sorry, Dr. Seuss, it's an animated book. You couldn't lie to me? And if you didn't get it, you just went to the back of the book, and here's what it says then. This book is 98.75% guaranteed to inspire. And then in parentheses it says this. The rest is up to you. The rest is up to you. I sat down and I wrote that. I read the book and I started writing him a message. And I decided to leave him that one line, unslumping yourself is not easily done, because I had already known that to be true. So I sat down and I wrote 10 ways to unslump yourself, because unslumping yourself is not easily done. And part of that list was really simple. It was like, do your devotional, inspire yourself, work out and move to feel better, take your vitamins, especially your magnesium for your nervous system. All of those really simple things. And of course, number 10 was, and call your mama. So I left him that, and there it stayed. And every day I thought about that boy being there. And I realized how hard it is to unslump yourself, but Dr. Seuss was right. We can go any direction we choose, especially after life levels you. My leveling came in 2021. When COVID came around, all of our lives were changed. How many of you would agree COVID changed everything? Changed everything for me too. My husband died of COVID. We laughed at that thing. I mean, it was laughable, the masks and the stuff and all of it. Now, I'm not going to tell you that we didn't keep the rules. We kept the rules, every one of them that changed by day. We were all trying to figure it out. I get it. We laughed at COVID, and then COVID laughed back. And the leveling in my life, I would love to tell you that I I did amazing. You know, I'm a pastor. I know every verse. I know every type of encouragement. I've been counseling people for 28 years. I didn't do too well. Not only did I lose my husband, but I lost my best friend. I lost my community. I lost my church. I lost my income. I lost my livelihood. I lost everything, because grief is one of those things where it's kind of cumulative. You know, we don't just lose one thing. There's a lot that goes with it. Not only did that happen, but simultaneously my kids were moving out of the house, so I was empty nesting. And that in itself was something that literally leveled me. I went from a house that was completely chaotic and crazy and happy and nuts all at the same time and loud, to standing in that home completely empty, and the silence was deafening. I would love to tell you that I manned up, that I did it really well. I didn't. I had a friend that came over, and she knew that grievers don't necessarily know how to help you, so she didn't do the, hey, let me know what you need. She actually did something amazing. She looked at my house, and she knew that since my kids came home from Miami, that I had an entire home full of their stuff and my stuff and trails all the way through it. So instead of her asking me, she told me, she said, I have Mondays and Fridays off. I'll be over to help you clear all this stuff out. We ordered a 16-yard dumpster. We put it outside. It stayed there for 8 months. They swapped it out 3 or 4 different times, and we cleaned out my house. Because I always had heard that your outside environment is a reflection of what's going on the inside of you. So true. So I began to clear all of that out, and we went room by room. Breaking down my marriage bed was probably one of the hardest things, but before we got to my room, which was completely last, I went into my son's room. I went into my son's room to start clearing things out, because even though they had moved out, they do what every teenager does. They move out of the house and they leave you all the crap they don't want, right? So it was an entire room full of stuff that I needed to go through, and so I began going through it, and I sat on the floor, and it would take me weeks to go room by room, because there's so many memories that just touching any least thing would just, there's the memories, right? And so I got to the place where I got to where his books were, and I opened it up. I opened up this little cabinet, and that's where I found the book. Cole didn't take it with him. In fact, I found out that the boy never ever even read it at college. It was brilliant. I don't know what he was thinking. But as soon as I opened it, I sat on the floor, and I saw my book that I wrote to him. And then I saw the half a page that my husband wrote to him, and clearly I lost it. And 10 hours later, when I finally came to myself again, I realized something as I looked at those 10 ways to unslump yourself. Because unslumping yourself is not easily done. I realized and recognized in that moment that I didn't write those 10 for Cole 2 years prior. I wrote it for me, for such a time as this, sitting on that floor, recognizing that my life was completely slumped and I did not know how to get up. I knew it, but I didn't know it, and I didn't do it. And as I read those things, this is what happened. I saw immediately the word slumping, and I immediately saw it as an acronym. And immediately I knew what every single one of those words was. It was like a download, and I received it. I'd like to share some of those things with you, because even though I know that we all have our best faces on, in a room this size, there's at least a handful of us that need to figure out how to get unslumped. Maybe for you, the expectation was great, the pressure was great, the escape worked for a moment, but now you can't figure out how to step out from behind this mask, and it's affecting everything that you touch. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to share some of my unslumping with you. Would that be okay? We're going to get there, and I promise you, no more sad stories. All right? Mark said that this would be uncomfortable, but I have to share with you where I'm at. Because if you've ever been to a place where you are completely buried and you don't know the way out, someone needs to come along and remind you that it's not over. So let's talk about that real quickly. We're going to go to the very first one, and I'm just going to give you some random ones that come to mind as I was looking at this and thinking about it. The first one is understand. First of all, understand that if this mask has become you, if you're at a place in your life where the weight of excellence and the weight of perfection is weighing heavy on you, I want to remind you that this season will not last forever. The cool thing about seasons is this: if you don't like the one you're in, just hang out for a little bit. It's bound to change. And I know that some of you are saying, but you know what? I've been in this season for 4 years. I want to encourage you today that if you're in a hard season, lean in, don't run away. Lean in. Because seasons have a way of teaching us things. There's 5, did you know that there's only 5 questions of life? Anyways, there are today. Hard seasons, if we don't run away, they teach us things. They teach us, who am I? What's my identity? Hopefully it's not the mask, but let's go on. Where am I from? Sometimes it reminds you of your roots. When we go through hard times and hard seasons, why am I here? Another one that it teaches us is, what can I do? What's my potential? What's inside of me? What lights my fire, blows up my skirt? It teaches us, where am I going? What's my hope? And by the way, if you're in a hard season and you're like, when is this going to end? When's the pressure going to let up? Whether it's in your family, if you've not realized it yet, I'm not just talking about our professional lives. If you're in a season of your life that's difficult, I want to refer you to that last word, hope. And I want to encourage somebody in here today, hold on, pain ends. It does. I promise you. Seasons teach us so many things, and so I want you to understand, don't run from the hard things, because unfortunately we run the wrong way. Most of us can look over our lives and we can think of seasons and you know, that are a little bit different. Some seasons we were crying, some seasons we were laughing. Are you with me? You look back at certain seasons and you were traveling with friends, or you're traveling by yourself, or you're traveling with family. Maybe you look back over your life and there were seasons where there was a tremendous amount of growth. Other times there was a tremendous amount of perspective. For me, during those seasons, that was really difficult. There was one thing that I learned about perspective, and it was from one quote, and I loved it, and I hope it really speaks to you too, because perspective really is everything. I saw this, and I was really dealing with a season of loneliness and a season of what's next for my life, and this is what I came up with. When nobody wakes you up in the morning, and when nobody waits for you at night, and when you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, what do you call that? Do you call it freedom or loneliness? Man, when I saw that, I realized that every single day I have the opportunity to wake up. And some days and some hours, man, this is complete freedom. I am up and there ain't nobody to take care of, and I don't even know what this looks like. And then other days it felt like loneliness. Perspective really is everything, especially in seasons that are difficult. And if you don't already know this, there's a song that was made famous by the Byrds about there's a season for everything. And I'm not going to read them all, but I am going to show you these two. There's a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. There's a reason that that's the order. Because I think that sometimes when we go through hard times or we go through difficult times in our profession or in our family or in our own lives, what happens is we try desperately to laugh and dance, and we have yet to weep and mourn. You can't do one without the other. And so I want to encourage you today. I know that we're here on a club conference. I understand that what we're doing is learning how to be better professionals, but I implore you to understand that the things that go on behind closed doors in private, they will affect your public. Would you agree with that? And when we are a hot mess back there, it's only a matter of time before it starts showing up right here. For some of you, you want to just take me home with you and put me in front of your staff. It's not for you, it's for them. Because every one of us has this thing on the inside of us that we all respond to heartache and pain and hurt and change the same way. We find a way to escape. I promised Mark that I wouldn't talk about grief today, but I do want to have you understand something. There's not one of us in here that's not affected by it. And here's the problem. I have this little saying about grief, that it's something everybody has, nobody wants, and it'll clear a room in 2 seconds. Because nobody likes the word, nobody likes to talk about it, but here's the thing. It's not about burying somebody, guys. It's about the things that break our heart, the things that we wish we would have done better, different, or more. Just curious, are there any professionals in here that have something in their life you wish you would have done different, better, or more of? You see, we look at that word as though it's something to do with burying something, but I'm going to tell you right now, you can still be married, and you could have buried your marriage a long time ago because the love's gone, the joy's gone, the excitement's is gone. For some of us in here, what we struggle with is a dream that was once in our heart. Every one of us knows what it is to have unmet dreams, hopes, and expectations. Would you agree with that? And what happens is we take that baggage with us into the next season of our lives. It could even be something that is a phenomenal blessing, like a new job. Isn't it confusing when we go into something new and exciting, like a new job or a new move, and it's exciting, but there's still something like a grief on the inside of us, and we can't figure out why we're sad? It's because there's still relationships that are changed. And grief really has to do with change. When something changes and it's no longer the same, that's called grief, and it's in our heart, and what happens is we take it with us everywhere we go. And then we get involved in a job that's super stressful, and all of that stuff is like a backpack on our back, and then we get in a situation where we get triggered and it gets heavy, and instead of running in the right directions, we run in the wrong. And before you know it, if you don't take care of you, a lot of times it affects your professional life. Have you watched that happen in anybody you know? Yeah. So today I want to talk to you about taking care of ourselves because, guys, I don't know if you realize this or not, but we can't lead people to places that we've not been. We can't pour from an empty cup. And I know that we have to keep the masks on our face because there's professionalism that is needed. However, there has to be a place that you and I can go to let the lid off and to be better for it. The next thing I want to talk to you about is unmasking. Authenticity is the type of leadership that I want to talk to you about today because Brené Brown says this: authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. I could stop right there and I could talk about that statement alone because for some of us, we haven't thought about who we are or what we want in a really long time. Right? Sometimes people that we love, they take first place and we get put on the back burner. We lose ourselves and then we're expected to help everybody else find their way. I love this quote right here. Authenticity is the alignment of head, mouth, heart, and feet. I talked to you a moment ago about congruence, about the things that we say we want and the things that we do on a daily basis. Are they congruent? Are they the same? Leading with authenticity, and I am not by any means suggesting that we walk around and cry to our members. That would be fun. I am not by any means saying, walk through your club, and when you're heavy with burden or you're heavy with responsibility and you're losing it, lose it in front of everybody. That is not what I'm saying. I am saying that you and I, we know well how to put on the mask. That doesn't need to be taught. What I'm saying is when we are done, where do we go? When we clock out, if we ever clock out, where do we go? Is there a place where we can be authentically us? Is there a place where we can say, I'm not okay? I am not okay. And I don't know if you can tell, I'm a little bit passionate about the fact that, especially in the church, we deem that as a place where you can come as you are. Come as you are. It's okay to not be okay. And then the minute that you aren't, you lose all your friends. Are you with me? In my 9th year of ministry and marriage, my husband was struggling because of the pressure. He was struggling with an addiction. We drove 7 hours to get in front of a pastor to say, hey, we need some help. And do you know what his words to us were? Without blinking an eye, he looked straight at my husband and said, do you know that with one phone call, I could take your license? I looked at that man and Mama Bear came out. I said, excuse me? I just drove 7 hours. I don't care about my piece of paper. I don't care about my license. I came here with my husband to get our marriage back and to get him back. Can you help us or not? And as leaders, guys, I tell you that because I know what it is, no matter what profession, that when it gets heavy and hard, we go to wrong places. And where are you going to go when you do? I want to encourage you today that authenticity is not walking around and crying to our members, but it's recognizing that when we are not okay, it's okay to not be okay. And we can allow not only our teams to know that it's okay to not be okay. How many of you have ever gone through something and you have to check your stuff at the door and walk in like everything's fine? Do you know that our teams do that too? And I want to encourage you today that I understand that sometimes there's a fine line between walking up to somebody that you know is hurting and saying, hey, I know what you're going through. I'm thinking about you. If you need to take a 5-minute break, please do. Wouldn't that be awesome? I know that there's that fine line because it's like, yeah, but then I'll open that can of worms and then it'll be a whole counseling session and we can't have that. Did you know that studies say and research says that just the acknowledgement of a hard time or a struggle without being put aside, without saying you're going to be okay and just putting it aside, literally listening to somebody is so valuable that they begin to heal just by being heard. According to statistics, authenticity builds trust. It builds leaders that people love to follow. So while we're trying to keep it all together, our teams really would rather us be real and honest about our own struggles so that we can acknowledge theirs. Trust leads to excellence. Trust leads to excellence. Authenticity and alignment is living a congruent life. Let me talk to you about living a congruent life. Have you ever been to a place in your life where what you say that you want and what you actually do on a daily basis is so incredibly not matched? Anybody? Do y'all hate me? Do you hate Mark and Beth for having me? I realize there are evaluations. Have at it. I walk into this room, and here's what I told Mark over lunch. He's like, where's your heart now? I said, Mark, my heart has always been to help people understand that they're not alone, that I don't care what profession you're in, I don't care where you are at in life. Everybody goes through a hard time, and all that any of us want is to be seen, to be heard, and to be validated. Somewhere along the way, we made it where it's weird to talk about what's going on in us. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't visited that in a long time, please do. Because the leadership that you're trying to walk in is getting more difficult by the hour for that reason. Authenticity and congruence is so important, guys. I was raised by a dad who he would have to spend 2 hours at a bar every day after work just to be able to come home to his kids and his wife. He was a mortgage banker and broker back when interest rates were 18%. I always thought that business guys would get off at like 8 o'clock at night. He got off at 5 and 6. He would have to go somewhere else to decompress just to be able to come home to 5 screaming kids. He didn't have a place to go. He didn't have a place where he could take the stress and all of that and be able to bring it. And I just want to encourage you to be authentic again, to be okay with not being okay. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you a weak leader. It'll make you a stronger leader. It'll make you more present for the people that matter the most. And if you can be around the people that you love the most completely in presence, it'll strengthen you for when you go back in, you're able to withstand a whole lot more, I promise you. Has anybody found that to be true? 3 people, awesome. Stress and living lies and bad eating and not sleeping and living in fear and living in worry, all of those things, guys, it'll tell on you before you know it. So I want to ask you this question because I'm already meddling and the evaluations are already being filled out in your head. Here's my question. What promises have you broken to yourself lately? What promises have you broken to your family lately? To your friends lately? See, because here's the crazy part about breaking promises. When we're not true to ourselves and we live behind the, I'm fine, are we really fine? Or does that fine just mean feelings inside not expressed? Because for most of us, that's exactly what it means. And the thing is that confidence is so important for us as leaders, but when we break our promises to ourselves and to our family, there's this thing on the inside of us that just screams at us and says, you suck. Are you with me? Anybody? Am I the only one that I'm my own worst critic? Man, when we screw up and we can't keep promises, that voice in our head is so difficult to get rid of. And the fact is we stop trusting ourselves, and therefore we know that the teams that we're leading, they can't trust us either. I want to encourage you today that confidence, I want to remind you that confidence is built by keeping promises to yourself. And if you and I sell ourselves out enough, if you and I make promises to ourselves that we don't keep long enough, there goes our confidence. And a leader without confidence is like a car without tires. We're going nowhere. Our teams need us to be confident. We need to be confident. And so I want to encourage you about this. Here we go. I'm going to give you this stat real quickly. According to a study by the Harvard Business Review, employees who feel that they can be their authentic selves at work are 16% more engaged and 32% more committed to their jobs. They become more authentic as they see us become more authentic. They become more concerned about their private life and walking in integrity when they see us walking in integrity. Would you agree with that? So we want engagement, we want commitment. So the next thing we're going to go to is the source of strength. Where's your source of strength? Whether it's your faith, whether it's your family, whether it's your support system, where do you find your source of strength? Because at least for this session, this is not about being our best club management self. This is about becoming our best self, period. Because excellence is not about being the best, it's about being our best selves. And no one can tell you but you whether or not you're your best self, right? No one can tell us. We know on the inside that, man, I'm faking this, but I don't have it together right now. And so what is your source of strength is my next question to you. Because burnout and stress and overwhelming responsibilities, all of that kind of stuff, all of that, we need a source of strength so that we can build up our inner selves, or we're screwed, guys. Let me ask you this question. Where do you go to fill up again? From what and where do you draw your strength? How often do you? How consistent are you with it? And I don't mean your source of escape. I mean your source of strength. I want to talk to you a couple minutes about where we run when we're stressed. I remember when things were kind of crashing down on me, I remember standing there in a Publix, And there was an entire display of a new wine. And I stood there, and I stared at it, and I felt what I felt, and I thought, dang, I wish I drank. My mom, I always told my mom that I wanted to be just like her, but I didn't mean in the way that I was. My mom lost my dad when she was 43. I was 46. They were married for 26 years. We were married for 25 years. My dad was 49. My husband was 48. I was 14 when my dad died. My daughter was 17. Man, did I really want to be like my mother. So she has been my greatest support, my source of strength, if you will. But she's the one that says to me all the time, it's a shame you don't drink, Jen. All the time. Mom would go disappearing underneath in the pool, underneath the ladder. We always knew where to find her with a glass of wine. But it was over time that she began to say, this isn't adding to my life, and it's not helping me. It is masking it. It is getting me out for a brief moment. But if I'm not careful, I'm going to end up with a whole bigger issue that's still going to be waiting there every single time. The high goes away. The sober sets in. Where are some of the places that we run when we're trying to escape? Does anybody want to help me? I feel like I need to ask your opinion on this one. Where do we go? Church. Beautiful. Where can we run when we need strength? Where? Family. Friends. Nature. You saw my notes. Thank you for saying that, because here's the thing. I ended up selling my house and taking the proceeds. Mark and I were just laughing about what a great decision this was. That I sold the house that my husband and I raised our kids in. We were there for 20 years. And I swear every morning that I woke up, I just wanted to see my future instead of my past. So I sold the house and I took the money and I moved to the beach. And I said, you know what? With what I do every day, I can't take on other people's pain if I haven't dealt with my own. I moved to the beach, and Mark and I agree. We're not beach goers during the day. But man, give me a beach at sunset and sunrise, I'm there all day long. So for 14 months, that's exactly what I did. I made sure that every day I had an outlet, some place that I could go, that when it got too heavy, when it got too hard, when I was sick of the mask, I could take it off and I could go fill up again. I could go find perspective, because you know what? When you're standing at a beach and you're looking at that ocean, you feel really small in all your problems. And so I want to encourage you that if you've not taken time for yourself lately, if you don't have an in-place set something where you can go to relieve that pressure, to relieve that stress, to take off that mask, to be you, to be seen, to be heard, to be validated. If you don't have a physical person in your life to do that for you, then talk to the rocks. Talk to the sand. Talk to the sunset until you can find someone who'll hear you. And some of you are going, man, I did not want to come into this session and talk about feelings. Why not? I don't know if you know this, you're spirit, soul, and body, so you can just fake the fact that there are other parts of you that are in need, or you can lean into them and go, okay, I'm not going to get away from this. The minute I put on that mask, many of you had a visceral reaction to it. The minute I started talking about my story, your mind went to your own memories and your own emotions. Guys, we're human. And whether you like it or not, if we don't start really leaning into our humanity, our leadership is going to struggle every day. Your source of strength is so important. Nature is one of those places to go. And here's another thing that I want to encourage you. Your mind I went to therapy I'm a very huge fan of therapy in any way, shape, or form. And I went to therapy for about a year and a half. consistently. I went during the ministry, and I also went after I lost my husband. But I remember being there and sitting in this chair, and I remember we would work through all of my BS, and my BS was my belief systems, right? We all have them. What I think about myself, what I think about other people based on my past, that's what happens, right? We experience things in life, and then based on what we experience in life, we believe things. Like if you're someone where your daddy walked out the door and never came back, chances are there's something on the inside of you that believes that you're not worthy enough to stick around for. Now, rather than bringing you into therapy session, I just want to share with you that the experiences in our life, they inform us. They inform us about who we are. They inform us about our value, our worth. They inform us about other people. If you're a woman that's been cheated on, or you're a guy that's been cheated on, chances are that there's something in you that you struggle with trust now. Because life informs us of who we are and who other people are. Agree? So we were sitting there in one of our sessions, and my therapist looked at me, and we always did this. We would always go through my belief systems and the things holding me back and all of these kind of things. And I was talking about how, based on some decisions that I've made, how I really screwed up. And, we go to really just leaning in on what a mistake, not only that we have made, but that we are. Because guilt becomes shame super quick. Guilt is what I did, shame is who I am. And so I remember sitting there with her, and I remember just kind of going in, and she's like, so what does that make you believe? And I just shared with her, well, it makes me believe that I'm probably going to be alone for the rest of my life. It probably makes me believe that I really can't trust people. And we were going through, and then all of a sudden she looked at me and she said these words, and I want you to get this. She said, okay, what would you rather believe? I looked at her, I said, you can't do that. You can't do that. Like, it's not that easy. She said, you better. I recognized that there were so many belief systems that I had in my life that the only person that was going to change them was me. She said, what would you rather believe? And I said, well, I'd rather believe that I'm worthy. I'd rather believe that I'm worth it. I'd rather believe that, and I started going through all of the things that I would rather believe about myself. And then she looked at me and said, and start doing that. Again, everything inside of me fought that and thought, it's not that easy, but it really actually is. What are the conversations that you have in your head about you? Do they sound a whole lot like, you suck, you make mistakes all the time, I don't know why people trust you, you shouldn't be in this position, you don't deserve to be here? Does that sound familiar to any of us? I have to get around Mark for him to tell me that I'm brilliant. And I know that I might not be showing it to you right now, but he says I am. And what's incredible to me is if that's what it takes, if you can't change your own mind about you because you know too much about you, there's too much water under the bridge, there's too many experiences you've screwed up, then that means that you've got to find a Mark, you've got to find a Beth, you've got to find somebody who will look past what you've done into who you truly are and begin speaking life into you. And by the way, if you're a parent, that works for your kid too. The conversations that we have about ourselves most of the time will trip us up. And here's what I want you to understand. If you walk through life shoulding yourself every day, yes, I said shoulding, not the other. How often do we walk through life shoulding ourselves? I should have done this. I should have done that. I shouldn't have done that. Man, we are great at posting a quote on the internet about no mistakes, just lessons. Really? Do you live by that? It's a great quote, but do you actually forgive yourself over the crap that you do? The bad choices that we make, the things we wish we could have done different, better, or more? Do we stop long enough to go, listen, I'm a leader, and so, I'm sorry about that. I'm a leader, so if I'm going to be a leader and I'm going to be a good leader, I better drink my own Kool-Aid. I've got to know who I am, and I've got to know what I'm worth, and I've got to know that what I did and who I am are two totally different things. And if you can't get that for yourself, chances are you don't get it for your people. Because when they screw up, they need you to be able to look beyond what they've done and say, that's not who I am, it's what I did. What is your source of strength? Where do you go to? And if you don't have anybody, find somebody. What would you rather believe? The N is, what would you rather believe? The N is nevertheless. Guys, we've got to get to that place that regardless of what we've done, regardless of what's been going on in our lives, we can say nevertheless. Nevertheless, I'm going forward. Nevertheless, I'm still a great leader. Nevertheless, I know that I've screwed up my marriage. Nevertheless, I think I screwed up my kid. Nevertheless, today is a new day. Today is a new day. I don't care if it's 5 people in this entire room that when you get up and you walk out of here, you realize that yesterday is exactly that. Today is a brand new day, and you can make a choice to unmask, to find your source of strength, and to start leaning in on being your best you. I don't mean that as rah-rah. I mean that as I wish my dad had. I remember being around his bedside when he was 49 and I was 14. I remember that the choices that he made now became choices that I'll have to live with for the rest of my life. When he started smoking and drinking when he was 9 years old because of being an orphan and the pressures of his own life, he wasn't fast forwarding to when his daughter would be 14. He wasn't thinking about anybody other than who I want to be right now and what do I want to do. So I want to encourage you, because you're not only a leader in your club, you are a leader in your life. And if you're not leading yourself well, know that today's a new day. No regrets. There's a short little video clip that I want to share with you, because I don't know if you have any regrets, but hopefully this will be your credo. Go ahead. Thanks, Kevin. How many of you ever saw this movie, We Are the Millers? Is it going to play?
Hey, those are cool tats, man.
Oh, for real. Thank you, bro. You see the Cobra?
Hey, what is this one? What's the one right there?
Oh, this?
Uh-huh.
That's my credo. No regrets.
Mm-hmm. How about that? You have no regrets?
Dad?
Nope. Like not even a single letter?
No way. Not me.
If you're taking notes, just write no regrets. R-A-G-R-E-T-S. No regrets. Guys, life has a way of reminding us what's most important. Please, let's not wait for all the shoulda, woulda, couldas to catch up with you before we recognize, to slow down enough and to understand that the world will still go forward when we don't show up. I'm not telling you to be less of a leader at work. I'm telling you to be more of a leader to your own life outside of it. Because you matter. This is not a spanking. This is a you matter. You matter to so many people. I know that there are days that you look and you feel like you've let people down, but you matter to so many people. And if we would stop long enough and show back up, man, the things that would change. Self-care is not about is not about being selfish. Self-care is about me, isn't me first, it's me too. You matter. Self-care is how you take your power back. Your temple's not a trash pit, guys. I want to ask you today, we're talking about plan and purpose. This is my last one with you guys. Is there a plan and a purposed, intentional action in your life every day so that you can uncork the lid and you can breathe again? Is there anything in your life that you have purposed so that you can show up every day and be your best? Is there any plan that you have in purpose or in the works already? This is what Henry David Thoreau says. It is not enough to be busy. The question is, what are you busy about? What are we busy about? Are we building the life? Are we busy building the life we say we want? Are we filling our plates with those things that add to us as well? You see, sometimes our decisions are really super difficult, but here's what we need to remember. If we know what we want on our plate, we know what it is that we desire, filling the plate is pretty easy if we know where we're going. What's most important to us? If you're here today and you say family is the most important thing to me, when I'm with family, it fills me up, then that helps you put together your calendar a little bit better. Because if you say that it's important, then what we'll do is when we sit down and put our calendar together, we'll put on that calendar time for family. It's not rocket science, but man, why do we screw that one up? If we say that our health is important, then do we have it on our calendar to actually take care of ourselves and to book that time? I don't care if it's 20 minutes outside walking with nature or if it's whatever that looks like. If we say that it's important, are we making a plan so that it can be in our lives? I cannot tell you how many families that I have sat down with, and the parents will look at me and say, man, I think I'm losing my kid. Will you pray with me? My very next words are, when's the last time that you were with them? Leaned in, not talking about all the ways they've screwed up, how dirty their room is, and how disgusting they keep their car. But when is the last time that you've just shown up? Because you're sitting here telling me that family is important, but Dad, you don't come home at a decent hour. You guys haven't had a family trip in God knows when. I'm just wondering, is what you say that you want and what you're actually putting on your plate, are they congruent? I might as well just go all in because, you probably want to run me out of here. So here's the thing. If it's not, you hold the power. Dr. Seuss said so. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. The problem is that a lot of times we get so busy that we forget to live. We forget to sit down and remember our why. We forget to sit down. And what we'll say sometimes is we'll use this try word. Guys, try is the most wussy word of all. I'm trying. I'm trying to keep my family together. Are you? I'll never forget the day that I was running and I had Cole. My son is now 23 years old and my daughter is 20. And I remember after I had him, I was trying to get back in shape, and so I went out running. And I was so frustrated because it's like I felt like everything was falling apart. And I remember I wanted to be a great wife and I wanted to be a mom. I was still in full-time ministry and I was trying to do all of these things and I was failing miserably at all of them. And so I went outside and I you know how we do. We put it in our minds that we're just going to start. And most of us start something really good, like we're going to make changes. And it's always on a Monday because who wants to screw up your weekend by starting on a Sunday, right? And so we always start. And so there I was, and I was outside, and I was walking, and it was morning time, and I was going to run, but I suck at running, so I was going to start with walking. And I put earphones in my head and my ears, and I began listening to a book by John Ortberg. It's called The Life That You Want. So I put it in my head, and I began listening, and then all of a sudden, he started talking about trying. He said, if somebody walked up to you and told you that they are hiring you for pay to run a marathon, what would you do at that point? Would you begin to try or would you begin to train? I stopped, and if there was anybody watching me, I looked like the biggest moron in history. I threw up my hands, and I was like, that's it. I keep walking around talking about trying. I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm trying. And I recognize that all the things that I said that I want, they're not actually anything that I'm training to get better at. Training meaning that I'm intentionally planning and purposefully putting in my life so that the thing that I say that I'm trying to do, I actually start seeing results. He said you would train for a marathon. You don't try to run a marathon. So are there any things in your life that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's one thing that I want to do better in? Something in my life that's off kilter, that's not congruent with what I say that I want. Something that I know that I say is important to me, but yet if it's really important, it should have place in my life. We try so often, and every time that I would hear myself say try, I would go, do you really want that? Or is it just your really good excuse right now to make you feel like you're on the path to change it? John Rohn said this, develop a plan for personal growth. Success is something that we attract by the person that you become. What's your personal, purposed plan of action? So here's how we're going to wrap this up. I know that as a busy professional that there's probably already a massive overwhelm in your life. So instead of saying you have to have a purposed action and it has to be a plan and here, do this, do that, I don't want to do that to you. I don't want to add more to your to-do list. So here's what I'm going to ask this of you. To be a greater leader, not only to your team, but more importantly to yourself, for your family, for your friends, for your children. Start with a stop doing list. Is there anything that just seeing the stop doing list, you went, oh, yeah, I could stop that? No. I should stop that. But we don't do shoulds, right? Don't should yourself. And don't try. Let's train. What is something that you could stop doing that is not adding to your life? Now, listen, don't go to, communicating with my mother-in-law. That one right there. I should stop. That's not adding to my life. No. No. Is there any habits? Is there any something in your life that every time that you do it, it may be helping you to escape the stress and the pressure, but is it adding value to your life? Has it become a crutch? Has it become something that it's taking the place of that which is more important? Is there anything in your life that you really need to stop doing? Just choose one. Just choose one. My dad worked his tail off every day. If you asked him why he would work 80 and 90-hour weeks, he would tell you because his family is so incredibly important to him. If my dad were sitting in this room today, I would wish that he would say, stop going to a bar for 2 hours every day and take those 2 hours and invest it into family time if you say your family's important. What is it that you can stop doing today that would add so much strength and energy and give you time to be productive in another area that truly, truly matters? What is one habit or task that no longer serves you? What's in your life that you could make out of your life and you'd be better for it? What is that? Speaking of what matters, let's revisit your core values. If you've not done this, it's literally a 10-hour exercise. Sit down and remember your why. Listen to a Simon Sinek book. Whatever the case may be, what is your why? What's the thing that wakes you up in the morning? What's the reason why you drive as hard as you do? What are the things that are the most important to you? Remember, if they are, then you'll put them into your schedule and you'll be better for it, better for your team, better for the people that love you. And this is my absolute favorite one. Set one boundary. One boundary. That's all I'm asking. What is one thing you can get rid of? What is most important to you? And what is one boundary so you can protect that one thing that you say matters? What is one boundary? Here's what boundaries look like. We can open this up for a second. I'm going to shut my phone off when I clock out. How's that working for you? Not possible. Okay, then pick an hour that it is possible. 8 p.m. How about this? Put your phone away when you're in front of someone that matters to you. That's possible. Because you see, I don't know if we're just so incredibly self-inflated that we think that if we don't show up every hour on the hour, the world, what's going to happen? What if we took that time with our children, with our families, with ourselves for 1 hour and we shut it off and said, excuse me, I am not available. Have you ever lost your phone for a time? When you finally found it, were you like, that was kind of nice. I should lose my phone more often. Because you realize that the only thing that makes us alive is connection. And we are the most disconnected people of all time. Do you know what's so scary? I love ChatGPT. He is my best friend. Chad and I are very close. AI is phenomenal. Here is the scariest thing I've read lately. Do you know that you can have a friend around your neck now? It's a little like kiosk thing that you wear around your neck, and you program it to know everything about you. And it asks you questions in the morning. Like when you wake up, it'll say, good morning, Jennifer. The weather's going to be amazing today. What's on your plan? Are you still going to the mall? Excuse me? That thing will ask you how your appointment was yesterday. Because it knows you that well. That is so scary and so sad that we are a people that are so disconnected with one another, thinking that what we are connecting to somehow brings us to life. And if you're here today and you're anything like me and you are just not really thrilled about where you are in your life, then why do we stay there? Why don't we look at it and just go, wait a second, what is my why? Listen, I am not advocating for you to do less on your job. I am advocating that when you clock out, that you remember that you matter and you have a life. And that if there is a passion inside of you, if there's something that you've always wanted to do, for some of you, you're writers. For some of you, you love music. For some of you, you love nature. For others of you, there are so many things that we, at one point in time, used to put our heart into, and man, it gave us life. I pulled out of Jacksonville yesterday, and I made my assistant come down and stay in my home. She is a single woman, 40, never been married, works her tail off constantly. I know why. Because she has endured so much loss in her life that all she knows how to do is escape the pain by running into things that fill up her time. Not her heart, but her time. I said, Shanika, you are coming up to Jacksonville and you are staying in my home and you are not allowed to do any work for me. You are not allowed to answer any emails. You are not allowed to do anything but bring your keyboard, use my studio, and do whatever you want with music. Nobody's living next to me. Be as loud as you want. Be as dumb as you want. I don't care. Do it. She texted me last night and said, thank you so much for making me do this. She works full-time with Disney. She creates these systems that are incredible. She's amazingly important and wasting away on the inside because she doesn't know how to clock out. What is it that you love that is not in your life? Because if we don't find it, then chances are we're going to be running after something else to fill that void, and it's not going to work. It's not in the next bottle. It's not in the next bed. It's not in the next shopping trip. Ladies, I don't care how great that outfit looks and how much you want to take it home. It will only fill the void for so long. What is it that not only once you take it out, you can add it in and remember what's important? Where is it that you get filled up again? Set a boundary for that thing. And I know that you're sitting there going, I can't do that. I can't shut off my phone after hours. I can't have one night a week date night with my wife. I can't do that. I can't have no phone when I'm with my family. You know, they're on their phones too, so it's okay. I want to end by saying this to you, and I know that we feel like we're running Chrysler sometimes. I get it. But you can't argue with this story, and it's true. Mark Randolph, the co-founder and first CEO of Netflix, small company, you ever hear of it? For some of us, that is our escape. It's Netflix. When it gets too heavy, that's where we run for huge marathons. Mark Randolph, he's kept something for 30 years. I love this story. For 30 years, I've kept Tuesdays as date nights with my wife without exception. It's a sacred time that's non-negotiable no matter how busy life gets. Let me read it to you. Let me read you what he says about specifically this point. I write about my Tuesday nights with my wife. For over 30 years, I've had a hard cutoff on Tuesdays, rain or shine. I leave at exactly 5 p.m., and I spend the evening with my best friend. We go to a movie, we have dinner, we go window shopping, whatever it is, we just do it. Nothing got in the way of that, never. No meetings, no conference calls, no last-minute questions, and no last-minute requests. If you had something to say to me on Tuesday afternoon at 4:55, you'd better say it on the way to the parking lot. If there was a crisis, it's going to have to wrap up by 5 o'clock or find me tomorrow. We can't, right? Those Tuesday nights have kept me sane, and they put the rest of my work in perspective. I resolved a long time ago, resolved, figured out what's important and made a plan and a boundary. I resolved a long time ago to not be one of those entrepreneurs with their 7th startup and their 7th wife. In fact, the thing I'm most proud of in my life is not the companies that I've started. It's the fact that I was able to start them while staying married to the same woman, my best friend. Having my kids grow up knowing me, and as best as I can tell, liking me, and being able to spend time pursuing other passions in my life, that is what I call success. I know that for some of us, this is hard to listen to for certain reasons, because maybe something that was important to you got lost by the wayside because you didn't have that determination and plan in place. If that's the case, then choose to forgive yourself. Choose to understand that hang-ups and bang-ups, they'll happen to you. And that the only thing that we can do with those things is look at them, feel them, so that we can heal them and move forward. No mistakes, just lessons. No, live by that. For some of us in here, we have the ability still to go home from this conference and to lean back into the things that are most important. And when we do, we'll be able to show up at our jobs. We'll be able to show up and check the baggage at the door, knowing that it will be there waiting for us when we get back. And we know what to do with it. We don't ignore it. We don't drink it away. We don't sleep it away. We don't Netflix it away. We don't shop it away. We don't gamble it away. We don't porn site it away. Because just like that mask, it doesn't work. But what does work is being able to say, this is where I am. I'm not okay. I know that I can be a great leader again. I made some mistakes. But nevertheless, I move forward. I want to wrap up by saying something that I wrote before I came here. The last quote I want to give you real quickly is this. I love this. James Clear, Atomic Habits. Anybody read it? Great book. If you don't like to read books or read them, then listen to them. I'll write a book. I just won't read them. So I'm the audio girl. James Clear, best-selling author, Atomic Habits, fantastic book. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Let me say that again. Every action that you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. I love that. Guys, I appreciate you listening and tolerating my prodding and poking and annoying you. Thank you. Before we go, I want to wrap this up by saying this. Thank you for that applause. It was actually not supposed to be then, so you could do it after this. Hold on. If I were to summarize today, I just want to make sure that you understand that what I'm saying is, again, not walking around being a basket case. Be a basket case on your own time, but do something about it. Authentic leadership and personal well-being is truly about embracing yourself, nurturing yourself, taking purposeful action for your life. And this is what I want to remind you of, because I feel like I'm in a place to be able to say this. When you lead from a place of authenticity and you prioritize your well-being and you take steps moving that direction, you're not just shaping your life, but you're setting a foundation of excellence for your leadership, for every role you play. And here's what I want to remind you about. If James Clear is correct, that every action that you take is a vote for the person that you wish to become, then please, please cast your votes every day wisely. Because in the end, here's the thing. Your daily votes and the things that you do, they determine not just your success, but the legacy that you will leave. And I think that we can agree as leaders that our legacy is really important. I want to share with you because I'm honored to say this. My husband's celebration of life service has been viewed online over 17,000 times. Who watches a funeral? Over 17,000 people have viewed that service for good reason. Because every time he walked into a room, because every time he met with somebody, because every time he said what was important to him, you could look at his life and they were the same. He didn't talk out of both sides of his mouth. He knew who he was. He knew whose he was. He knew where he was going. He knew where he came from. One red light town, raised in front of a junkyard. That man, when I met him, I said, you had no role model of what to be. How did you do this? How did you become the person you are? And his words were this: I had a role model. I had a role model of what not to be. I figured that if I did the complete opposite, that I would be okay. And that man did everything he could on a daily basis. He wasn't perfect. As you know, I told you that he had an addiction that nearly took our marriage. But when it came out and when he stepped it forward and said, this is where I'm at, we fought it and we fought it together. We leaned in instead of leaning out. So wherever you are today, I want to encourage you, you are the leader that you want to be. And if you've forgotten, well, that's why I was here. Thank you guys very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Very, very important and impactful words. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank you for being here. Mark, thank you. Did you say anything about the books? Okay. There are some books. Jennifer, have you mentioned this already? Okay. Jennifer has some books to sign. She doesn't have one for everybody, but she will share the books. So if you'd like to come up here in between sessions and pick up a book, that would be great. The password for this session is excellence. Okay. We are going to take, what time is it? 3 o'clock. We are going to take about a 15-minute break. The vendors have pretty much all broken down so far, so we're going to go ahead and get started a little bit early at 3:15 instead of 3:30. And I have 3 more gifts to give away. Jennifer, would you like to come pick the winners?
Sure. Would love it.
Oh, you pick it. You pick it. You pick it. Then I'm not in charge.
Okay.
I'm blamed. Last 3 numbers are 724. 724. All right. And you are receiving a complimentary custom shirt from Mr. Goldfarb, who is right in the back. And you can say hi to him as you go back that way. All right, go pick another one. We've got 723. 723? Three bottles of South African wine. Sweet. As you were walking up here, I thought, oh, I hope he drinks. I hope he drinks wine. And the last one, pull one more, is going to be 648. 648. Do we have a 648? Oh, wonderful. This is courtesy of Matrix. It's a Titleist golf bag. And if you call Corey, he will send it to you. Wonderful. Thank you. All right, so we're going to break for 15 minutes. Be back here at 3:15, please. And for those who would like a copy of Jennifer's book, please come up and she'll sign them for you.